Welcome to The Boost, conversations with people promoting mental health. I'm your host, Steve Turney, and I'm here with
Reggie D. Ford. What's up, y'all?
How's it going?
It's going well. What you got there?
This podcast is not sponsored by Zevia, but we're here riffing before we bring on an amazing guest. And I had this in my bag, and this stuff's amazing. Have you ever had this?
I've never heard of it.
Okay, so of course, in 5 years, they may come out and say, you know, some new finding, this is the worst thing for you ever. But when I was younger, we could never have sugar sodas in our house.
Okay.
Yeah, we couldn't have sugar cereal, no sugar soda. And so then you break away from your family a little bit, and it's like, oh, man, actually what I want is a cool, refreshing Coca-Cola Classic.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's like the bubbly, like, effervescence of like the research they've put into making this addictive drink, and it's like packed with sugar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I noticed myself doing this ride, this sugar spike, and then this kind of fall off.
Yes.
For me. So this stuff is totally clear. It's like,
Okay.
and
But
there's no sugar.
But it has
And
it's sweetened.
It tastes so this one is almost like exactly like Dr. Pepper. They do like a cherry Coke knockoff, a root beer knockoff, a grape crush knockoff, no calories. And so sometimes I get into a keto phase. I'm in a keto mood right now, and keto totally works for me, and I can drink this.
Okay.
So in terms of mental health being connected to my biohealth, I don't have that spike that I would get from other sugary
I like that.
things.
Okay.
What do you do? What do you have that's like going on like that?
When it comes to drinks, I'm big on the sparkling water. So when I saw it come out, that's what I thought it was. It put
It's
me in that
probably
mind.
mostly that.
Yeah. So what my favorite brand, and this is not sponsored, but Polar, that brand, I love the flavors that they have. But we were talking about something earlier that is connected to, I think, mindset, mental health for me, and growing up in poverty, and how I just became aware last year that I would eat. I've any meal that is in front of me, I will eat it until it's completely gone, no matter how full or how hungry I am. And the mentality that I don't know when the next meal is going to come. I need to fill up with all the calories that I can right now. And I've been doing that my entire life, and I'm no longer in that state. And yet that is something that I am bringing more awareness to, and challenging myself of like noticing when I am full, because I don't think I've been so growing up disconnected, the poverty, but also being disconnected from the sensations in my body. And so just the awareness around like, do I need to take that last bite, or do I need to take those last 20 bites? Mm-hmm. Like, and a lot of times the answer is no. Mm-hmm. So that's something that's really been big for me recently.
Yeah, I mean, my youth, my upbringing has similar, some similarities to it for sure in terms of limited means, and I was the youngest of 4 kids. So I don't necessarily always clean the plate, but I eat fast.
Yeah.
It's like if
somebody's coming to stab you.
If I'm not conscious about it, I'm like, that's my chicken. Those are my veggies. Give it to me, the potatoes. Like, and I will eat. I've gotten a little better about it recently, but I just eat fast because I think it's the same kind of survival instinct of like, this is the food for the night.
Yes.
You do not get snacks later. So this is it.
I had a friend point out how fast I chew recently, and I've never been told that, but like apparently my jaw is moving when I'm chewing and when I'm eating, and
that's funny.
So yeah, that is another one.
Wait, hold on. I'm funny you mentioned that because I have a theory that I developed this week on chewing. Because like you'll see these Instagram influencers and they're like, what you need to do is chew your food 40 times. It's like, and it's like, so I was thinking like, what is the actual benefit of chewing your food more? Is it, I don't think it like magically transforms. My theory is that we simply get tired of chewing. So we're like, God, I've been chewing on this thing 40 times. I think I'm kind of done here, because it's a muscle.
Yeah, it is.
And it's like a
and
lot
you get
smaller
tired.
than the bicep.
Yeah,
like
you
do 40
get tired.
curls.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm done for 4 days.
Yeah.
So I think it's just like curls for the jaw.
Mindfulness workouts for your mouth.
Yes. So chew your food because You'll probably eat less. That's my theory.
Yeah, no, that's something that I don't know how fast I chew. I haven't like calculated that, but
Are you working on improving it?
I'm not. I'm focusing on one thing at a time right now. But another thing is I grew up thinking that in order for it to be a meal, it had to have meat. And I've like completely gone, like I can go plant-based, I can go all vegetarian, vegan a lot of times. And that is something that I think is just learning more about, the benefits of a plant-based diet and filling my body up with more whole foods. So,
okay. That's a difference for me. So I'm on a keto phase, which is like all the protein and fats you can possibly eat, no carbs. So, and this is maybe just like some people, but my body totally responds to keto. And there's a great book called Why We Get Fat. Okay. And it unpacks this theory of keto, which basically like our body holds on to carbs in this like kind of tri-molecule way that gets locked inside the cell. And then when you get into ketosis, your body unlocks those, whatever they are, the tri-molecular things. And I haven't read too much about it. And then it unlocks it back into your body, and it lets your body kind of go into this flow. And I honestly have never had more energy than when I'm in a full state of ketosis.
Okay.
And it's so mind warping because I'm like, now you do eat vegetables and you eat a big salad at lunch and stuff like that. But otherwise, like as long as you can avoid bread for me, I'm like, it's amazing. I'll just shed weight. It's incredible.
What does being in ketosis mean?
So it's when your body stops holding on to extra, calories, basically extra energy sources, and it lets it
The natural.
It breaks down into one part instead of three parts. And if it's three parts, it's too thick to get through the cellular wall. But if it's one part, then it can slide through the cellular wall, and it starts to burn and kind of move energy and calories through your body and not having to feel like it needs to hold on to them so much.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a trip.
Interesting. I have a friend, and this may be some of the same, connected to the same process, but he used to play defensive lineman, big old guy, and still pretty big just by nature, but he ended up losing over 150 plus pounds. And it's like, wow, what have you been doing? Oop. And he said that it was the order in which he ate his food. So he started with his vegetables first, then he ate his meats, and then his carbs. So he's like, I didn't really cut out anything. I mean, I continued to work. I was already working out. That wasn't getting the weight off of me. But eating it in that order, for him, again, we're all different, but for him, he said that helped.
So that's probably he filling up on vegetables and protein, and then like you get to the end of the meal and you're like, I might not have all the.
Why, when you go to a restaurant, they're going to put down some chips, all the carbs. They're going to put down the bread, all the carbs first, and so.
Yeah, it's all that, and I love bread. But it's like it's this salty, it's the salty gluten that then you're like, ooh, now I need a drink. Yeah. Now I need something sweet. And
but
then it's like
this ketosis, I'm like, we gotta fight that.
I also have a theory, and then we'll get to our amazing guest. But I have this theory about vegetables, which is not mine, but it's like, it's like, well, vegetables are good for you. It's like vitamins and minerals. It's like, no, they are poison. Is what vegetables are.
Oh, okay, that's your theory? This is a theory?
Yeah, it's a theory.
Okay.
How do vegetables survive? They have
water.
They have what do you mean? Ingrained poison that keeps bugs and other animals, rabbits, away from eating them.
Okay.
It's why vegetables taste bitter and acidic and these like nasty kind of flavor. Now I love vegetables, but as a kid, it's like eat your vegetables. No, they're gross. It's like broccoli. For a kid, you have to get accustomed to the natural herbicide that is in the plant.
Interesting.
And then our body overcomes the poison with strength. And that's what makes vegetables good for us. It's not that vegetables are good. It's the bounce of the ball in reaction to the poison.
I got to read about this. That's good.
Maybe. Let's get to it. We'll be right back with Todd Schlosser. All right, welcome back to The Boost. I'm stoked to be here with my guest, Todd Schlosser. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. You're a pro at this, man.
I've been doing it for a long time.
How many episodes of podcasts have you hosted? Do you have a count?
Oh, it's, I don't.
Is there a number?
It's over probably close to 550, 600.
Yeah.
I started a weekly podcast in 2018. I believe it was June of 2018. And we haven't missed a week since then. And then in 2020, I started a second.
Okay, you got
A second.
You got like horror films, and is it rom-com or what's the second one?
Yeah, I hate horror movies. So the premise of the first podcast is I don't like horror movies, and that's legit true. I do not like being scared. I hate haunted houses.
So you start a podcast about the thing you hate. That's brave.
I didn't want to do this podcast. The guy who started it with me, who actually left the podcast,
Did he
after 20
threaten you
episodes-
even? He threatened you even more. Where you're like, well, he threatened you even more if you didn't do it.
I mean, honestly, it's going to get dark. But he tried to get me to do it for like 4 years. He had moved to LA because he got a job writing for Kevin Hart, actually. And then I moved out to San Diego because my girlfriend moved out there, and I could do what I was doing at that time, sort of from anywhere. And so he was like, let's do it. And I was like, no, I hate horror movies. So when that relationship ended and I moved back to Nashville, he also found himself back in Nashville. And I was sad and bored, and I was like, let's do it, fine. But I really hate like jump scares, like things that jump out.
Yeah.
I can tell you a really quick story to emphasize the point.
Yeah.
Our third episode on The Horror Virgin, which is the name of the horror podcast, is like, it was the Hereditary. Have you guys seen Hereditary?
No, I hate this stuff. I
Same.
don't watch this.
Same, bro. So we're in the theaters because we watched it in the theaters because I'm an idiot and my friends hate me. And there's a scene, I'll just call it, and you guys will know what I'm talking about. It's like the naked man misdirection scene. Like you see, like there's for no reason a naked dude in the corner, and the camera pulls your focus that way, and then it cuts back to your main character, and then something jumps out at him, and it is the scaredest I've ever been scaredied. And I stood up in the theater and yelled the F word, and then was like, oh, I guess I'll slowly sit back. I was actually wearing this jacket, and you can hear it like against the.
You're subtly trying to disappear.
And so like. It was super scary in the moment, and then like 30 seconds after that, when the tension dies down, you hear pockets of people start laughing at me.
Oh wow.
So I really don't like scary movies.
And
So
you've done hundreds of episodes.
that one I've done way more of. It was I think we're in like the 350s in that
goodness.
one. The other one, my co-host Paige hates rom-coms, so I make her watch rom-coms because I love rom-coms. So yeah.
You love rom-coms and hate, and I can see it now that you say it on the website or wherever I found the podcast. You do look like you're not interested in the movie, and you're the most scared in the. But I thought, oh, he's just being funny, but that's actually.
But that's real.
I mean, it can be both.
Yeah.
It can also be funny
It is
and
funny.
also be scared. Yeah,
It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm a big believer in authenticity.
Yeah.
But I really do like. I'm also. Both of my podcasts are movie focused because I love movies. I just genuinely do love movies. So even if I am scared by a movie, I can be like, it's still a great movie. I'll never watch it again. Like I think Hereditary is one of the best horror movies ever made.
Okay.
I hope to never watch it again because it's so. And it deals with like specifically like my trauma, like the trauma that I had growing up. So it's like very, like rough for me specifically. So like it may not resonate with everyone that same way, but man, it messed me up for days.
Oh, so that's like tapping into like your whole experience, lived experience, and your youth and things like that.
I mean, it's
like,
similar. Yeah. There's like elements of it like that it deals with.
Wow.
How often have you been watched the movie and not been able to finish it because of stuff like that, the triggers that come up?
I've never not been able to finish it. I take the like I call it like the contract with the audience very seriously because we get a lot of listens. I feel weird sort of talking about how well it does because it's done better than I ever expected.
We get dozens of listens. Go ahead. I mean,
brag on that.
We get on both podcasts. We get millions of downloads a year. Like I never thought I'd own a house and it pays my mortgage, and that's not even my day job. I just like I'm going home tonight to watch Save the Last Dance, and then I get to record an episode on it with my friend, and it actually sort of works out because my day job, it keeps me very, very busy. But she's out in LA because she's a stand-up comic. So she's out in LA, and so she's 2 hours behind me. So I can work until 6 and then watch the movie and then record until midnight and then it's fine. You know,
Wow.
I can still keep, and that's all I have to do because we just send all the, I'm sure as you guys do, all the files off to your editors and they edit it.
Do the edit
Which
stuff.
it was nice when the podcast got to that point because
Yeah.
I was over editing at some point. We were talking about that a little bit before.
Oh, yeah.
I've gladly handed that off to anyone who would take it. But yeah, I really do love that aspect of my life, even though I did not ever expect it to do that. I
That's
thought we would
brilliant.
do 40 and then no one would listen and we'd
Yeah.
stop because,
Yeah.
you know, we didn't
Yeah.
build an audience and it's not worth it's a time investment.
It is time.
It's
Oh,
not worth doing it if you're not going to have some, you know, audience to play with and like have fun with, and honestly support it financially, whether through ads or Patreon, which we do both. You
That's
know,
amazing.
because I realized that I am good at marketing and I am good at finding revenue streams for things. Because I did not know this, but like my entire life, I have been like creating content myself and then figuring out, or maybe perhaps you might say, manipulating people into paying me for the content I'm giving them for free. But it works. And I kind of love it.
Should we do
love that
Patreon
part of
for
it.
this? I've never done Patreon. I've heard
This
other.
is definitely a conversation for off mic, but probably
Yeah.
we could talk about it though.
Can we talk about it quietly?
Yeah, we need to talk about
Yeah,
that.
like we could ASMR an episode on it, sure, if you want to talk about it quietly.
in the dark with a scary
Right.
movie in the background.
Sound. Yeah, it playing and just something jumps out behind the couch. All right.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do the virtual hug.
Yeah.
Tell us somebody or something you're grateful for.
And Reggie, we were talking about this a little bit before. I am grateful every day to sort of be at this stage in my life, even to be at a place where I would have called myself successful as a kid. Like I am also a little broken, so there's always more I want to do, and like there's things that I haven't done yet that I'm striving for. But I never thought I'd be here. I grew up pretty lower class, honestly. Like I grew up in an apartment complex across from a trailer park, and all of my friends were there. You know, like so I didn't even think I'd ever be in like own a house, and I bought a house in 2020, and like was the first person in my family to buy a house, and so like it's like a crazy perspective shift. And I'm just incredibly grateful to not be like food insecure anymore, you know, like when I was growing up and stuff. So I am like, even though aspects of my life are difficult, I try and like refocus on like, this is way better than we ever thought we'd have. And I don't always talk to myself in the third person like that, but yeah.
I like that. I like that. And what you said about a younger version of you looking at where you are now and saying that is success.
Yeah.
I think we have to come back to that a lot of times, especially when we get to chasing these goals and accomplishments and we achieve something. And if we look back at that 10-year-old version of us, they're going to look up and be like, man, you're killing it. You're
Yeah.
crushing it. Our older selves might not feel that way, but the younger one would definitely feel that. So
Yeah.
that's a good reminder. That's amazing. Well, I want you to brag a little bit because I wanted to hear some of those numbers. You gave us some, but let's hear the shameless plug for whatever it is that you want to plug right now.
I mean, if the two podcasts we were talking about earlier, the first one that we started originally was the Horror Virgin, and then the one that came out in 2020 is called Romancing the Pod, and we've done literally an episode every week since, because of that contract with the audience that I have, that no one's holding me to except for me, and I'm just an idiot.
Why is that so strong? Like, why is it such a?
Because I have a very thought out, perhaps incorrect philosophy on like how to build community and like through content creation. And I've done that for 20 years, sort of without knowing it. And about 7-8 years ago, I started to formalize why I think I've been successful in each realm, at least to the level of success that I got to. Yeah. And in that process, I came up with sort of like a philosophy that works for me. And part of it is sort of my contract with the audience.
The commitment to that is amazing.
I have always considered myself smart enough to sort of be able to figure it out, but not naturally like very smart. So I've always, if I'm doing something, I want to get into it and I want to dig deep on it because I want to understand it. And so I think a lot of it was me dealing with my imposter syndrome of getting to a certain level of success and like realizing that it was probably a lot of luck, but there were some things that I did to capitalize on that luck. And I was trying to figure out and quantify what it was in the content creation success that I've had. Like, how have I been successful? Because I do feel like I just did some things and it worked.
Yeah.
And then I had to figure out why did
that
those
worked.
things
Yeah.
work.
You spoke to a couple of those things already with one, authenticity. You
Yeah.
said, yeah. And so when you show up and you are who you are, you attract what audience needs to see what you do.
Yeah.
And then also the consistency of having that contract with the audience and and staying committed to that. I think that's one thing for me in putting out content and things is like, if I thought about doing a weekly podcast with, I don't know, do you have an end in sight, or is that something that you think about to get away from what I perceive as anxiety? It may not even be anxiety for you. It may just be like, this is what a way of life.
I'm naturally always very anxious, so I deal with that too. But I don't have an end in sight for the podcast. There's not really an end game outside of, if I stop enjoying doing it, I won't do it anymore. Because I mean, I still do have a day job that I make more money from than the podcasts. So that's like, I got to make sure that keeps going and that career keeps growing. It was funny. We did get to a point where, like, if I hadn't gotten the job that I'm in now, I could have walked away. And now I'm sort of addicted to my day job in a very, I think, fulfilling, but probably not great way, because I'm at a software company that was in an early sort of growth phase, and I joined in 2023, and there was no marketing team when I started, and I sort of had to sort of build the ship as we were sailing. And it was a lot of hours, and I definitely am a workaholic, and it was just me getting those little wins and those little dopamine hits, and I got very addicted to it. And I sort of love what we're doing there. Me and my boss, what we're doing there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty fun.
It sounds like you had a huge role in the growth that marketing side has had.
There was someone there before me. They didn't have a team and they stepped away. Honestly, I think from what I understand, they got a much better gig for them. So that was great. It worked out great for me. And I came in and sort of restarted their desire to build a marketing team. And I now have a few employees, and it's 18 months since I've been there. It's more than doubled the size of the company from a revenue perspective.
Wow.
And because I'm a nerd for reporting, have built into Salesforce all the reports that I now use to prove to my leadership team and my boss and all that stuff that, like, a lot of that growth is because of the contributions that me and my team make. And honestly, I do feel like I am very lucky, because what I'm selling is also, like, this is going to sound very self-serving because I work there, but I do think it's the best in the industry right now. And that's our product and engineering teams that lined it up and did all the hard work to make that happen. But I feel very lucky to have them behind it, so I don't have to put lipstick on a pig. I can just tell you what it is and be authentic about it, and it'll resonate with people.
And this is Sunwave Health.
Yes, I should
VP
say.
of Marketing. We should say it just for the audience.
Yeah.
And we're going to take a quick break and be right back with more from Todd right after this. At Turn Productions, we craft experiences that connect, engage, and inspire. They feed the mind, they fill the heart, and they fuel connectivity. From dynamic conferences to powerful podcasts, we bring ideas to life through our proven process of planning, production, and promotion. So your audience doesn't just listen, they remember. Ready to make an impact? Let's build something unforgettable together. Visit turn.productions to get started. All right, we're back with more from Todd Schlosser, who is, we just learned, although we already knew, the VP of Marketing at Sunwave Health, an organization that is lighting it on fire, doubling in a short period of time. So talk about how you got into marketing, whether it was there or before that. How'd you get there?
I came to marketing in a very, very strange way, at least in my opinion. I didn't go to school for it. I started out in recording industries because I thought I wanted to be like a producer or a rock star, and none of that. I didn't want to care how close a microphone was to an amp. So I quickly changed to business and just finished with that. But I was in a band in college, and we got to a point where we were pretty successful. We had songs on the radio, and we were touring with like Bret Michaels and Stryper and Tantric and bands like that. So like bands who were moderately successful or had been at one time very successful and were sort of on their way. Yeah. So it was great. It was a great time in my life, but like I didn't realize the way that I got us to that level. And it wasn't just me, but it was me and my one of my best friends, and I still love this guy. His name's Chris Faust.
Oh, yeah.
I know you know
Big
Chris
fan.
Faust. Yeah, he was our singer. And so I realized later in life that the way we grew the band was just marketing. Like we sat in a Panera and built our first website because we knew we needed a website. We didn't know how to do that, so we learned. We taught ourselves how to do that. We just figured it out. And then I spent all of my bonus money that I got from my job that I had in college. I was working at Verizon at the time. I spent all of my money sending out press kits. And we got a bunch of them back that said, we don't accept unsolicited submissions, which is honestly exactly what I send people who send me cold emails in my work inbox. But I then bought a stamp that said requested submission and stamped it on the folder and then sent it back. And about half of them did not come back that time. And that's when we started to tour with bigger people. And
just gave me an idea.
I realized later that like all of that is sort of marketing on some level. And then I did the same thing when the band stopped being profitable and we all sort of moved on. I continued with my creation of content. Like I'm sort of addicted to that, and I love that. I love creating something and putting it out into the world. And my next sort of venture was being a Twitch streamer. Are you guys familiar with Twitch?
Yeah.
So I
That's
started
mostly for gamers, right? Or is it just
at
for
the time
any,
it was only for gamers. I stopped in 2017 because it just became, I was on camera 7 hours a day, 6 days a week, and it was a lot. It was a lot of work. But I grew that to the point where it was my only job, and I was making pretty good money. I was living in San Diego. That's the job I had where I could just go anywhere. So I moved up to San Diego with my girlfriend at the time. And
making San Diego money. I mean, that's something,
it was great.
You know,
lived right in Mission Valley. We could hop on the trolley.
Sure.
Yeah, it was great.
I went to high school in Escondido, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm the youngest of four, by the way.
What?
We got to talk.
We got a lot in
common. We got to
common.
talk after this. Yeah. But I realized that the way I got people to watch my Twitch stream, even though it was different methods of marketing, it was still marketing. So like when I was wanting to stop doing that, I called my friend Chris Faust. And he was like, hey, did you realize that we're like good at marketing? And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what you're saying to me right now. And he was like, let me hire you here and you can create content. I was like, all I want you to do is just create videos for Journey Pure. So I got hired on at Journey Pure.
That's
and
right.
we were there for a few months. And then I have just continued to sort of work in marketing. And as I've gotten further into it, I realized that like, oh, I've done this so many times. Like, I just didn't know that it was called a cost per lead. You know, I didn't have the vernacular for it because I didn't go to a traditional like marketing school or a program for it. I just sort of learned it because I had to figure it out because I knew I needed to make money to continue doing it. You know?
Yeah, you're like, this needs to be more money in than out.
Yes.
Like whatever that is called.
Yeah.
You weren't like, well, the return on investment of these KPIs. It's just like.
Why can't I get enough people to watch my Twitch stream? Maybe my cost per lead's too much. Like you don't think about that kind of stuff. But that's like what, and I think that the generation that's coming up now is going to intuitively know so much of this stuff
built in.
because of social media. And I kind of think that's great. There's a lot of things about social media I hate.
True.
But I think it's such a powerful experience to put like time into creating something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and just loving it and being like, man, this is the best I've ever created. Yeah. And then putting it online and someone being like, that sucks! Because it is like a humbling experience.
Yeah.
And that is what you'll get online.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But consider the source is all I'm going to say.
Consider the source. Yeah. Oh yeah. And don't believe any company that has only 5-star reviews. That's the first danger.
Right.
Fascinating. Yeah. I mean, we launched this brand, Turn Productions, in Q4 24.
Yeah.
And I would say we're really good at branding and marketing. And I see a lot of companies stumble. And we're, a young company, but it's like you can do a lot of good for yourself simply by the blocking and tackling of here's how to put together a brand and how to do a website, how to do email marketing, the ultra basics. But it's like you know, it can cause big wins.
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. Like one of the reasons it was great to start a marketing team at Sunwave was because everything was a win.
Yeah.
So like if we started our email marketing campaign and it sucked, it's still way better than nothing.
Nothing. Oh,
And we got way better over time. I don't think it sucked when we started, but you know, everything's a win. So
No, I just joined this company recently for some work around marketing, and their HubSpot was like days away from getting canceled. the email, you know, it's like
of the bounce rates
purchase
and all
list and like these high, you know, it's like, oh my goodness, your
Yeah.
score is like a 1.1, and if you like sneeze, you're out. And so it's like, you know, so what we did is we transitioned everything immediately to a personalized, no HTML, plain text email.
Good.
Hey, it's, you know, I just was thinking about you. Like, you know,
Open
it's like,
this email.
it was like, you know, I thought you might enjoy the XYZ right here. Just, it looked like it was coming from a human, you know?
Yeah.
And then it was like the opt-outs started to decline, and the registrations went through the roof. And it's like, it's the most basic thing.
It is.
But it looks like I'm working magic, you know?
And
Isn't it great?
one thing is like what I've noticed in marketing is like I see what attracts me to a company or like the emails that I'm getting, and I'm like, can I mimic that? Can I imitate that? And that's a easy way for folks out there who are trying to build their own marketing strategies to look at a different company. But I'm thinking you went a different route. I feel like you were very innovative and independent in your thought as the approach.
I agree. I want to add one thing to that, which is like, I feel like I'm talking to like a young Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
Or like somebody who's like, it feels like you have an innate ability to like pick the next winner.
Yeah.
And not everybody has that. Is that what it's like? You picked rom-com podcast. Like that is, there's such a big TAM. Like there's such a big total available
Addressable
market.
Yeah.
Addressable market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I mean, you're like, you were on Twitch when Twitch was twitching. And then
I
you're
was on
like,
Twitch when it was Justin TV. And if you know what that is, you're a
Wow, OG.
nerd. So yeah,
I don't know what Justin TV. What is that?
Justin TV became Twitch and then got bought by Amazon for $1 billion or so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff you're doing.
Yeah.
So then you're like, well, I'll
Picking
land
unicorns.
at Sunwave while it blows up. You know, it's like becomes one of the best.
I got so lucky with Sunwave, man.
Maybe.
I got so
Yeah.
lucky. I think that my ability is just like the only reason I've been successful is because I've been able to like capitalize on those lucky situations through a careful balance of like doing the research on whatever it is and just general workaholism, just fixing a problem until it's actually fixed, you know?
Yeah, no substitute for hard work. But what was the first thing you said? Oh, you research. You're like, and you said like, I'm not the most like the smartest person ever in the world, but I'm smart enough to know that I need to know what's going on here.
Yeah.
And that's another big part of it. Whether it's your accounting or your marketing, you got to look it dead in the eye and say, okay, I hear this story that's being told to me, and then I can.
Man, what you just said right there is like, I think a core value of what everyone should do, and that is what story is being told to me, or what story am I telling, and that is, I think, the key to marketing. And if you don't know Joseph Campbell and like Hero of a Thousand Faces,
let's
and Story
go,
Circles,
Todd.
and you're
Let's go.
creating content for marketing, it's not resonating. Like I have a whole philosophy on content creation, and I like the whole
Let's go there.
aspect. Okay, yeah. So are you familiar with Joseph Campbell?
All day.
Love Joseph
Yes.
Campbell.
I don't know who Joseph
all
Campbell
good.
is. Teach me.
Joseph Campbell
Hero
wrote
with a
Hero of a Thousand
Thousand
Faces. He wrote some other stuff too.
Basically, yeah. I mean, like Star Wars, all these stories, you know, the Hobbit, they all follow this arc of this hero.
The hero's journey.
The hero's
It's
journey.
exactly the hero's journey.
Okay.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
and it's like, I think it was like initially 17 or 18 steps, and then he shortened it to 13 or 12. And then a creator that I really like a lot, Dan Harmon, turned it into 8 steps. And I sort of scale it down a little bit even more from there, just because I don't have 30 minutes for a Rick and Morty episode. I have a minute to capture people's attention while they're scrolling through LinkedIn in the bathroom. So like I have to shorten it.
That reminds me of this movie quote. I can't remember. You'll know it, but it's like he's like, you know what? They've got 6-minute abs. You know what would be
Yeah.
better? 5-minute abs.
And everyone's like, oh, like that guy did something.
Yeah. I just want to make 5-step hero journey.
My favorite part, okay, and I think that is a good example of why a
Grab
lot
the
of people
sword,
fail.
get the goal.
Yeah. I think it's a good example of why people fail at a lot of things is they'll like have this idea and then never think it through to like, could we do that? And how do we do that? And the special people that you want to hold on to are the people who, when you ask, hey, can you do this? Or would you want to like do this creative project with me? If they don't know how to do it, they're like, we could figure it out. Like you want, we can figure it out people. I want people who will like, yes, and my insanity.
Yes.
And like, we will do that until like we're robbing a bank as a joke. Like, just like yes-anding anything that you think you might be able to do. And how can I help? How can I lift that up? And if I'm the one with the idea, how can your partnership lift that up?
For sure.
Yeah.
Like you want to surround yourself with people like that. That's why I love Chris Faust. He is that for me. I love that.
And you
guy.
are that. Like you yes and all the way to a horror podcast when you didn't like that. Like you yes and all your
He
way
just
through.
did it to you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, yes, and I not only did that, I started a romantic movie podcast too, largely because COVID was rough and I needed another outlet.
Wait, so did you cover off on the actual content marketing strategy?
Wait, what?
You said I have a philosophy around content marketing.
So it's not just content marketing; it's sort of content creation in general. But part of that, I sort of alluded to the contract with the audience.
Yeah.
A lot of it is consistency, especially in this space, like the podcasting space that I've been successful in. You have to modify their behavior, and you can't modify their behavior. The behavior you're trying to modify is them listening to your podcast. So you can't modify that behavior unless you're giving them something to listen to. And I want to build a repeated habit of every Monday or every Thursday, I listen to a podcast that I put out. So every Monday or Thursday, there's a new thing for you to listen to. We'll occasionally do like, because it's a horror podcast, every Friday the 13th, we do the next Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, sure.
We're almost done, thank God. But they like, those are like the 3-episode weeks is what I call them, because we've got horror version on Monday, romance in the pod on Thursday, and then Friday we have another episode. So it's like a whole bigger production thing. And they're like, but I never don't do it because that is my contract with the audience. Like they need to have that content.
So there's a guy I know. I'll drop his name. His name's Jared Usry. I worked with him at this healthcare marketing agency. He is legit Mensa bright, like genius, you know?
Yeah.
Like you watch his mind like unpack the universe, and you're like, and then he spews out these like brilliant thoughts.
I could have joined that group, but they make you take a test, and I was like,
I thought it was just an $80 application fee, but
that's how I became a minister. I figured it was the same. I don't know.
You got your doctorate in it as well.
like a lot of weddings. And he said something very similar to what you just said. So maybe you are Mensa level. Maybe you are the smartest man in the room. He said, a very key aspect of community is a cadence of consistency.
Yep. Why do you think you go to church every Sunday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sit in the same spot.
Same
Yeah.
spot.
Sit in the same pew, my friend. That's the only place I'll sit in a pew. But yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that like churches invented, behavior manipulation or whatever, but it's just because churches do it, I can also do it.
It is a home though.
Yeah.
You sleep in the same.
It's community.
You like sleep in the same room every. If you got home security, it's like us. This is where I sleep. This is where I sit to eat my food. You don't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
It's like the Mitch Hedberg joke. Like anything is a chair. You can sit on it.
Yeah.
But here we are. Like we need these routines, and we need some of that. Like you can be.
Yeah.
You can be far afield. And it sounds like some of your childhood was maybe some of that was like food insecurity and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but then there's the call to adventure, the Joseph Campbell, you got to get out into the wild.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So like I heard from Grammy award-winning writer, music writer, that people listen to music on a 3rd grade level. And he writes these songs and he's like, you don't have to overcomplicate it. And one, to the consistency of that commitment to the audience. But if you could simplify marketing in that way, if it can be, and I think part of it can be, but like, what would you say the pieces that people are missing and overcomplicating when it comes to content creation, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to storytelling?
I think everyone's overcomplicating the content creation piece, like wholesale.
Yeah.
I think you really got to either put your customer or your target in that position of the hero in the hero's journey, and then sort of through the circle of the story circle, tell them something that's going to make them feel something. And if you can attach any emotion to your brand, it's going to be good. If that emotion is negative, long term, it's not good, but it'll still be good in the short term. But if you're not building content that resonates, that doesn't create some sort of feeling in somebody, no one's going to feel called to action with that call to action at the end. That's why you cry when you hear Sarah McLachlan and see dogs on your screen, your TV. Like it's you know it's going to be like donating to those commercials or whatever. And it's just, it evokes emotion. So you've got to find a way, and I'm going to say manipulate. I don't like using that word because it sounds negative, but you got to find a way to like make people feel something, to make them do something.
I mean, there's two drivers. I mean, really, there's greed and there's fear. And so there are two ways to catch a fish. And this is like as simple as I can take marketing. You drag something in front of the fish that they want to eat. It's like, oh, I don't have that bit of food. Okay, well, then you've awoken them to their desire, and then the fish strikes that bait. And you give them something good, something they want, something that's like nurturing, entertaining, educational. That's what content really should be.
Yeah, it has to provide value. I mean, that's another one of my core tenets. Like, if you're not providing value, even if it's a newsletter, like in the newsletter campaigns that we do at my day job, we don't lead with what Sunwave is doing. We lead with what the industry is doing. Did you know these things are happening? We'll like link to BHB articles or because they do great reporting. And that's what the people who are receiving those emails actually care about.
Yeah.
Of course I put below the fold some stuff that our AI is doing that is the only AI that's doing it. But like I am not going to lead with that because it's too self-serving. And if I can even get someone to open the email, that's a win for me. Read the stuff that you need at the top, and please keep reading. You know?
And in a meta way, like you didn't mention your company off the top.
Right.
You slipped in this AI comment in a very sophisticated way, 2/3 of the way through the podcast, which is it's an important mention, right? Like it's really good to mention. I want people to do that. That's why we lead with the shameless plug, because I noticed people were ashamed to say the work they did. But on the other side of that coin is that's not the most important thing, is what your company feature set is to me. I want to be educated or entertained about the problems I have. And then you can get down to business with like, and this is how we solve it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we'll do things that'll like just to capture people's attention that are just like silly and fun. And I think because of the space we're in, a lot of people are pretty buttoned up because it's behavioral health, a lot of substance use disorders, and just treating that. And those are serious stories, and a lot of the content that's created around it are serious, especially on the treatment side. I think we're on a software side. It's a little bit of a unique position because we don't have to be as buttoned up, and we can be sort of silly. So like at GXE last year, I was doing a race to show how easy our AI is. And so I shaved everything but a mustache because I look terrible with just a mustache. And I wore an umpire outfit, and I had my one of my employees do it as well. And we were like running around. People were like, we were like with stopwatches, seeing how fast they could generate a note with Mara. But we were just like being silly, and we like produced a video, and it was just like fun. So we got to share that kind of stuff. But people like loved that video because I look like an idiot, but it's getting people to like note. I guess the value I'm providing is like it's silly and fun, and people get to sort of make fun of me in a way. But also like they're learning how great Mara is, you know? And that's what I wanted. So like when let's just say there was an executive at the company that thought it was dumb and that it wasn't going to work. And I loved being like, hey man, look what worked.
And that is an old story. Like, you know, Nashville radio shows, like, yes, underwritten by an insurance company, you know, turns into the iconic, you know, shows that, you know, brings the best musicians on week after week. But it's like, you don't lead with like, this is the insurance show, you know? It's like, no, this is, you know.
Yeah. I think that most people, don't realize that your content can't be as self-serving as you feel like it should be. Like it has to provide actual value or they're not going to care. I mean, you can get people other ways to notice you that is not necessarily through content. Obviously, there's a lot of different channels for marketing. I just have a unique passion for content creation itself.
Sure.
But like, you can also do like influencer stuff and get a friend to influence a friend, that kind of thing, which works great. And that typically is how you grow on things like this in this space. That being podcasts, because it's hard to sort of PPC your way to success in this space for some reason. I have found the best way to grow is through collaborating with other creators and just guest swapping and things like that, which is great. It's a benefit to you and a benefit to them.
That's why Reggie's here.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's how it started.
Yeah.
He was an early guest once we retooled, and then it was like, oh man, there's some vibe, there's some mojo here.
Yeah.
And it turned it from an interview into a conversation. You know, like it's so much better. It's so much more natural.
I do like the 3-person setup. I think it's great. We did it for a long, long time. We had a host who actually lives here in Nashville and had to step away because of his day job is super demanding, and he runs the mental health cooperative police response team, emergency response team. So he built the pilot program, and he's still on the show at that point. But then the pilot program went really well, and they rolled it out to all precincts for police and fire. So he was like, I'm too busy. I can't do it anymore. But he was our third host for a while. Nice. I prefer that.
I totally wish I had planned a jump scare for you.
Oh,
man, I totally wish like there was like
What are you most afraid
mannequin
of?
in the corner.
Is it the clown?
By far, death. Mortality is like by far the thing that scares me the most.
Yeah.
I'm a hyper logical person, and so faith is a thing I struggle with.
Okay.
Because I always just want to be like, yeah, prove it. So I'm like one of those guys who's like really hopes I'm wrong about there being nothing after death, if that makes sense. I don't even want to call myself an atheist because, like, man, wouldn't it be great?
It is the great wager.
Yeah. But so usually it's like horror movies that deal with that kind of stuff that messes me up. I hate it.
Okay.
Or honestly, I grew up super religious too, so like the Conjuring movies, I don't like them.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan.
Yeah, there's a great stand-up, James Acaster. Do you listen to him? He's British, and he said he was like, man, I was like so stoked to go to church up until like 4 years old when then I rolled in one Easter, and it's like everything's going great, like extra people are there, and then like that's when he learned that his best friend was dead. Jesus, and then this old man unpacks the whole story from him, like, you know what crucifixion is? And then James was like, oh my God. And then James is like, why did he die? He's like, well, basically for you, because of you,
It's your fault,
shame.
Technically. Because you sin.
Oh, man.
4-year-old. Can I just say something about James Acaster?
Yeah.
He's one of the only comics who uses what is called the unreliable narrator technique. So he, on stage, is playing a persona, but he lets you in on the fact that he's playing a persona. And then he can release these actual nuggets of vulnerability in between the jokes that like lets you know who he is as a person. And it, in a very cool way, makes me lean so far in every time I'm watching him. Even if he's on like a panel show, not even doing stand-up.
Well.
Like that guy is he hit a different gear for me for stand-up comedy than I ever expected to find.
He's faster than most. Like he's like, if you watch the best freestyle rappers like Harry Mack or somebody like that, James Acaster is a freestyle comedian, but he will come in with these little comments of like, well, that was sad. I probably should have told you that was sad, and then he'll go about like talking about how like Dr. Pepper tastes like a sexy battery. He's like,
well, what does Dr. Zevia taste like?
Basically,
that's what
like,
smashable battery, my friend. I think that if you haven't watched it, I'm just going to plug James Acaster's repertoire on Netflix. It's a 4-part special, and you have to watch it in order because the jokes build night after night.
Oh, he's good then.
Yeah, the dude's crazy.
Yeah.
I hate that we got to wrap. Let's do this again, man. You're
whenever you want.
Wonderful
I live down
guest,
the street.
and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Before we go, one last question is. This would be going to be a tough one for you, or maybe easy. I don't know. What's your favorite piece of, like, I would call it content right now, but it's like book, record, album, podcast, whatever it is, something that is like most interesting to you right now?
I would say the book I read most recently was actually I'm not gonna the book I read most recently was It's Okay If You're Not Okay, which is great. That's not the one I want to plug though, because you mentioned Rick Rubin. He has a book called The Creative Act, and if you care at all about being a content creator or just want to get into it, he has such a unique perspective on how to be creative, and that sort of anyone can do it on a certain level, and it's sort of just trusting yourself to like live in the moment and just be there and be present and create something. I love Rick Rubin because he's not a musician, he can't read music, and he's produced my favorite albums. Like he is just a connoisseur of cultivating what is good. And then honestly, because he's been so successful, he is able to dictate what is good because his name alone attached to a project makes it more prevalent.
You set the standard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've learned so much from you guys. This has been like a crash course in marketing. Like you said, you didn't take any marketing programs, but I've been sitting here like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
like
I
this is
learned-
better than any marketing course ever.
Oh yeah, this
Yeah.
is a lot more efficient. But I knew it. A game recognized
Yeah.
game. He's the next Rick.
Yeah,
He's
you
the
were
next Rick
setting the
Rubin, ladies and
standard.
gentlemen.
Yes.
No, thanks for being on the show. It's been a lot of fun.
Happy to do it. It was great.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.